So now we're back here in Sublime Text, and we want to go ahead and set up our document. We have to set up our document in a certain way. We have our link to our style sheet, and our style sheet's over here, and we're not going to do much with it just yet in this exercise, but what we're going to do is we're going to set up and section off our document in a way that kind of will help us when we go to style it in just a little while. So one of the things we'll do is we're going to use some of the newer elements that's available in HTML5 that allows you to kind of make more sense of your website and your code in HTML, and allow you to set things up and section it out. When you section things out in HTML, it makes it easier for you to call those elements as selectors or other ways you can access them in order to be able to do kind of fancier things or certain things in CSS. So one of the first things we're going to do here is we're going to put a header section here, and this header element, we'll go ahead and put this here. Oops, that's going to be around our H1 element here. So we're just going to make that our header, and we'll be able to do some fancier things with it when we get to our CSS, but I'll go ahead and close that here. So this is our header element, and we'll go ahead and keep our nav out of it, but this is our header element right here. So we have my first website. This is my first website. This is now included within the header element. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead down to our first paragraph section, and this is our first paragraph section that we use. And if you can remember, we put this comment in our first course. We put this comment in our index.html document to let us know when we were finished our first section, our first paragraph section. We're going to go ahead and wrap this in a section element. Now there are a number of different elements you can use to help section off things within your content. Right now we're going to use with section elements and just kind of work with that. But as you can see, and I'll just go ahead and put that right there, it automatically kind of closes it for us when you're in Sublime Text. Another thing you might want to do is maybe go ahead and add another comment. I went ahead and added a comment, and not just the end of the first paragraph section, but I went ahead and added when I had began another section as well. So this is the beginning of our formatting section. And I want to go ahead and wrap several of these sections that we have in one big container. Now you're going to find that very often in CSS and HTML, when you're styling, we'll use containers to section off things and to have things in a certain way. And so having things wrapped in a big container, if you will help you. Now I know we mentioned, if you read through our chapter, that there are a number of different elements you can use to kind of designate content and section off content. And as I mentioned, we're going to be using the section element here. We could very well as easily use the main element, or we can use like a div, but we want to be more semantically correct. So we could use some of these other elements that they applied if we chose, but we're going to stick with section for right now and stick with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a section element right here, and I'm going to go ahead and just close that off. And we have to remember, this is going to be one big section around 3 of our content right here. We're going to take several of our sections and put in one big wrapping, if you will. So I'm going to leave this top. We got to remember to close that. But then I'm going to take the format section and put that in a section element. So that's in its own section. And at the end of this formatting section, I'm going to go ahead and put the closing part of this. We're at the end of the formatting section right here. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And so that closes my formatting section right here. And you can kind of see this little underline part. The Sublime Text gives you a clue. Some of the fancier text editors will give you a clue when you're opening and closing a tag or an element. So I'm going to close this formatting section. I'm going to go here and put another section element right here around the list section we have. We're going to enclose that in an element so it can be properly enclosed. This is the end of our list element. You can see why the comments will help us. So I'm going to close that off right there. So we have that closed, as you can see. That's wrapped in its own element. And then finally, I'm going to put a section element right here for our table section. I'm going to close that off in a section as well. Put this right here and section it off. So now we have our table element closed, sectioned off as well. And remember, since we started this with one big wrapping we want to put, we have to close the very first one that we used. So I'm going to go down here and put another one just right here. I'm going to close that section element. It automatically knows. And if I click on that and highlight that, I kind of go back up to the top of these 3 sections that we have. And I'll notice that this is corresponding to this particular section element right here. So I have everything wrapped in one big element that's a section element for everything, and have each individual section wrapped also in its section element. And that it may seem a little bit confusing, but when you start looking at this, you'll find that you'll do this quite a bit. Sometimes you'll find people using divs and not just using section elements or main elements. You'll find them using divs, but it's kind of better to be a little more semantically correct to kind of section off it so that you're using the right kind of semantics and elements with it. But you can do it in a number of different ways. So what we've essentially done is we've taken this formatting text section, this creating list section, and this table section, and we put it in one big div. We put individual sections for each one of them, and we put one big section around each container, if you will, around each one of those. So what that will do for us, it'll give us a better chance to kind of set things up when we go ahead to style this. And we also put this first paragraph section into its own section element. So I'm gonna do the same thing here. So we're in this, and this is going to be a container. So when we think about what we're actually doing, even though it's behind the scenes and you can't see it yet, we've actually taken this formatting section, the list section, and the table section, and we put it in its own container. And the reason why we put 3 other separate sections around each one is to take each of these sections, put it in its own container, and we're going to be able to do something with it and style it and position it in a certain way in CSS on the screen when we do that. So that's going to be the end of our first container section right here. And then this is going to be our next container. So what I'm going to do is the same type of thing. I'm going to go ahead and put a section element right here. And this is going to be one big container. So that's going to be the opium part. So I got to put one around this images right here. Put one right here. I'm going to close this first one so that it closes this right here. So that's closed. Then I'm going to go around our links and put its own section. And I'm going to take and close that at the end of our links section right here. At the end of our links section, we're going to put a closing one right there. So this right here closes off our link section. And then I'm going to put a final closing one right here that just closes off everything in this one big container, wrapping those 2 sections in that container. And so finally, for our last one, so this will be the end of our second container. For our last one, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go ahead and put a section element right here. And it's going to be our main section to include both our audio and our video part. I'm going to take that right here. And I'm going to put a section element right there. Let's just close that off. I'll back that up a little bit. So since I have my audio, at the end of our audio section, I'm going to close it right there. So that's our audio section. And you can tell it's corresponding to this particular section right there. So I'm going to close off our audio section. We'll just give that a little bit of space. How about that? And then we're going to go ahead here and put a section element for our video part. So I just wrapped the video as well in a section. And I'll go ahead and close off that section. So this closes off our video, and I have to close off the very first section element, this section element right here that corresponds to this, closing that off, so that now we've wrapped the audio and visual part as well in its own section. So you're not seeing anything yet. It's going to help us when we style it. So we've wrapped this audio and video part in its own section as well. So what that's essentially done for us is given us 3 containers. We have a container for our audio and video. We have a container for the links and for our images. And we have a container for the first 3 sections that we have in our website. So now what we're going to do, the last thing we're going to do is going to put a footer section here. And so I've already kind of gone ahead and pre-populated. You can go ahead and put in a footer section. And the footer element is an element just like the header element that's new with HTML5s. It allows you to be a little more specific and a little more concrete in how you're communicating your code behind the scenes, and it lets browsers and screen readers know what you're doing. So this footer section, as you can see, this footer element is right here. I've already typed it, and I added in some comments to help me know that I'm at the end of my 3rd container I just did, and I'm going to put my footer section in. And then what I did is simply just put a paragraph right here that says, "Thank you for taking our course." And you'll be able to see it right here. Thank you for taking our course. And then I put in another paragraph that says, "Contact us," and I use the address element. Now the address element is something that we have in our summary within our CSS next steps booklet. Within our booklet, you notice that we put several of these elements here that you can use that are new for HTML5. Well, the address element allows you to kind of put in and designate a person's contact information. So it says to a browser or to a screen reader, hey, this is contact information. It'll help you in search engines or different things like that. Just give the browser that information. So in that contact information, I put in the address. I just put written by, and I put in an anchor element, which, as you know, is a link element, and an href. Just as a tip to you to let you know, if you use this href anchor element in this attribute, you can put the word mail to, just all one word, and a colon, and then whatever email address you want. And that'll actually, it will actually act as an email address. And you put the words that you want to put right there, and then that'll actually be an email address. If you ever clicked on an email address, a link within a website, and you linked right to an email address. Now, this doesn't work if people don't have email set up on their computer or on their phone, but I just wanted to give you a little tip that you can do that, and you put the words right here that you want it to be. And then also, as you notice right here, we have the BR element. There's a break that we know that we can add to our content to kind of start things over on a new line. We talked about that in our last course. Well, there's also something called a non-breaking space. Now, you can actually add a space without having to have it start over a new line. All you have to do is have the and, this ampersand, and then NBSP, and that stands for non-breaking space. So that's a little character entity. We'll talk a little bit more about that in another course or another situation. But this allows you to add a non-breaking space, and you can see it right here that it spaces it out without starting it over a new line. It's right there, but the BR is right there, and that starts it over on a new line. So essentially what we've done is we've added a footer. You can go ahead and add the comments right here to end your footer section. So we've added a footer section. You can go ahead and add a footer section. Whatever content you want to put in it, you can put. We've added 3 containers, and I put some comments there to make it more clear in terms of what those containers are and when they start and finish. So we've added 3 containers. The third container has our audio and our video information here, and it's contained within section elements. The second container has our links section as well as our images, and the first container has our table, and it has our list, and it has our formatting section. That's in our first container that we're going to use. And we also sectioned off our first paragraph, and we have a header there. So now we have our document really kind of set up such that we have a lot of information there, and we can do more with this when we start to style this in CSS and call this. But there's just one more thing we're going to want to add to this. First, we're going to save it. So I'm going to save it. Make sure you save that. We're going to want to add IDs and classes. And IDs and classes kind of let you act almost like variables. It'll let you to actually allows you to select and name certain aspects of elements within your HTML document and call them and use them in your CSS file. So we're going to tell you how to do that because you're going to use that quite often. We're going to do that right now in this next exercise.